So I just read Testament by Kim Sherwood, and I have some thoughts. Gosh, it sounds so stern when I say that, don't it? I have some thoughts. This book impacted me a lot more than I thought it would. Like, really quite stunningly. So let me tell you all about it. But why are you watching this video? Well, Kim Sherwood was recently announced as the author of the 00 trilogy. For James Bond fans, that's kind of an exciting thing, because the 00 trilogy is an officially sanctioned trilogy of books about agents in the 00 section who get up to certain shenanigans. Shenanigans doesn't seem like the right word. When James Bond 007 goes missing. And Kim Sherwood was selected as the author of this trilogy. The estate of Ian Fleming doesn't really mess around when it comes to books in the world of James Bond. So this is kind of like a big deal. And I remember at the time being like, okay, I have to find out a bit more about Kim Sherwood, because that's interesting. And yeah, the thing is, Kim Sherwood has written one book called Testament. And if you want to get to know an author, the best thing you can do is read their book. I always say that. People are always like, Roland, you never share anything about yourself. And it's like, I've written and published 29 books. Read that. My entire life and psychology is inserted into those books. If you want to know anything about me, it's all there in these books. So don't go wasting your time asking me questions. But that's what a book is. It's an amazing thing. I heard someone once describe reading as meditating in someone else's mind, and that's the case. I mean, here's Testament by Kim Sherwood. She created this book, this story, and you have this unique window into it through the book, and you get to conjure it up in your mind, in your translation of the words that she put from the vision she had in her mind. It's an incredibly intimate experience when you think about it. So yeah, I wanted to find out more about Kim Sherwood, and the best way to do that is to read the book she's published. And I'm going to have a quick diversion here and say, River Run Publishing, who published this book, get your act together. This book is not available on Kindle in the United States. I had to order this print-on-demand paperback, which took a while. I mean, this is crazy. River Run, like, you know, I'm the champion of self-publishing. I think that self-publishing really is the way forward, and I think traditional publishing and a lot of independent publishers just really do a disservice to their authors. And I have to admit that given the fact that Kim Sherwood is now writing an officially sanctioned trilogy of books for the estate of Ian Fleming, River Run, she deserves better, River Run. Because people like me are like, oh, I'll buy that book. I would have bought that book on Kindle in a heartbeat. And I didn't because it wasn't available. Like, do you have any idea the amount of money you're leaving on the table right now? Like, authors like Kim Sherwood trust you to be advocates for them. And, like, small details like that, given the weight of what she's doing right now, are unforgivable. So, River Run, get your act together. I digress. Let's go back to this book. So this book, well, there it was. I'm a pretentious wanker, I will admit. So when I decided to read Testament, it was very much, you know, like a wankerish thing of like, oh, I want to find out more about Kim Sherwood, who's only written one book. Why on earth would the estate of Ian Fleming trust the James Bond franchise to somebody who's only written one book? And yeah, I expected reading it to be expected to be a very worthy book. But then I realised I was being a wanker, and I was like, I should rephrase that question. Instead of why would the estate of Ian Fleming let a woman who's only written one book carry the weight of the James Bond franchise? And you should think of it of, hey, why would the estate of Ian Fleming entrust this woman to carry the weight of the James Bond franchise if she's only written one book? That's the question, because then you're like, oh, they must have a reason. They're pretty smart, those people. I mean, the estate of Ian Fleming, you know, when they sanction a novelization of a James Bond book, it's a big deal. And they've got really, really serious about it, and they've done amazing things. I mean, you think of the Moneypenny Diaries. Like, I'll throw a link down below, because you can actually download some of the short stories from the Moneypenny Diaries for free. And if you are a James Bond fan, you need to read them, because they're really interesting, and they bring a whole new like interpretation to it. Then there's the Young Bond series, originally by Charlie Higson, and that was like a really clever, brilliant, like exploration of that. So the fact that the Double O trilogy is going to exist in the first place is a big deal. And clearly, the estate of Ian Fleming wasn't just going to randomly pick anybody. They picked Kim Sherwood. And why is that? Well, we have the answer to that question possibly here in this book, Testament. And yeah, that's one of the reasons I was so excited to read it. And it was also such an interesting experience because it made me challenge so many of my stupid preconceptions about reading books. I mean, I'll admit, yeah, I got quite excited by this. I was like, you know, the estate of Ian Fleming, they must have seen something in this author, so let me read her book. And then I was like, oh, look at that cover, it's literary fiction. Oh, I hate literary fiction, can't stand literary fiction, so pretentious. And so I have to admit, I went into this originally with the mindset of, oh, I'm going to read this book, which is literary fiction. It's fine, I'll read it and I'll appreciate it. But in my brain, it was like going to a vegan restaurant and eating like some vegan tacos or something like that. I was vegan for like 18 months, okay? So I've been down this road. Vegan tacos, they're pretty good. Yeah, but they're not like steak free. Like if you enjoy a good steak and some good fried potatoes and you go and have vegan tacos, it's not going to hit the spot in the same way. So I'd imagined that reading this would be like a big piled up plate of steamed broccoli or something, and I'd eat it and I'd feel good about it. But I'd gone in with such a pretentious wankery mindset to it, and I have to admit, and that's good, I like to poke fun at myself when I see me doing things that are kind of wankerish like that. So I started reading this book. Yeah, and that's when I realised it wasn't a plate of steamed broccoli at all. No, this is like a 5-course meal of like cucumber sandwiches and tea, and then bratwurst and Bitburger beer, and then goulash with a nice one of those bull's blood red wines. It was a meal that was a journey, so many different things. And I think what really got me was immediately when I started reading this book, my mindset changed. Instead of being like, oh, I'm so pretentious, I'm reading this book, it's a very worthy book, but it's like a plate of steamed broccoli. It wasn't. It turned into like, I'm sitting down having this meal of goulash and bratwurst and cucumber sandwiches, and it's almost like I'm sitting opposite Kim Sherwood as a human being, staring into her eyes, listening to her tell me a story. And when very quickly, that's kind of like the mindset I got as I read this book, and I was completely absorbed by this book, like very, very quickly. And I'm still trying to process why it was this book just caught me so much. And it seems like for such personal reasons. But then again, in some ways, the sign of great art is when it resonates with you for reasons you think almost like the author wrote this book for you, but then there are other people who think the same thing, but they think it for different reasons. That's great art, when it explores themes and things that resonate with a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons, but it's amazing. And this book resonated with me for so many reasons that, I don't know, seems so personal to me. But let me just tell you a little bit about it. So Testament is a book about a young woman called Eva, who has been living with her grandfather, Joseph Silk, who is a very famous British artist who paints in blues specifically. He's like famous for painting in blues. And when he passes away, she's distraught because he was the father figure to her. And then she finds out that the Holocaust Museum in Berlin has the testament of her grandfather, Joseph Silk. The testament was after the Holocaust. A lot of the people who'd survived the Holocaust wrote testaments. They were asked questions by people as they got processed about what had happened to them. And yes, in this book, her grandfather, Joseph Silk, had written a testament because he was a Holocaust survivor, and she went to find out what was contained within the testament, and it basically challenged everything she knew about her grandfather. And the book is pretty much divided into sort of two stories. There is her story as she goes on this journey to find out more about her grandfather's real life. And then there is the story of her grandfather told through the perspective of several different characters who are instrumental to his life. And it was an amazing experience reading it. And yeah, I think there are so many things that impressed me. First of all, like, obviously I'd opened this book being like, oh, she's going to write a James Bond book. I wonder what her writing is like. Well, yeah, pretty much immediately if you read this, you'll see she absolutely can write, if she chooses to, with the economy of Ian Fleming. Like, it's very, very similar. She does dialogue brilliantly, like, none of the extraneous he says or she says is brilliant. This isn't a James Bond book. This is nothing to do with that. So the prose is very different to what you find in a James Bond book, which would be very sparse because it's an action adventure story. This is literary fiction, and so which expands certain sections. But you can see there are bits with Kim's writing in which she's incredibly efficient with writing. She uses metaphors beautifully, which is another thing Ian Fleming was very, very famous for. His metaphors are brilliant. He can say so much with a few words, and Kim Sherwood has absolutely nailed that as well. She just uses a few beautiful turns of phrase, and it's funny, I'm one of these wankers who's always got his phone out, and I'm like, every time I see a section that I like, I take a photo of it and go and re-examine it later, and I've done that like 20 times. I've been posting a few on Instagram, and I thought maybe I'm going to get, it shouldn't sue me, it's like, why didn't you just post the whole book? Anyway, but yeah, metaphors are beautiful, and that means it's very easy to get swept away and processed by this story. But the thing that really got me, I think, was the structure. It's funny when you think about Ian Fleming as a writer. Structure was never his strong suit, because he was a journalist, and then when he put together his stories, they were kind of on rickety structural foundations. But this book, I said earlier, it's like a meal. And it's got all sorts of different courses, because parts of the book are set in Britain, parts of the book are set in France, part of the book is set in Berlin, part of the book is set in Hungary, and you've got Hungary in the future, you've got Hungary in the past. It's amazing. So it's like eating breakfast followed by goulash, followed by cucumber sandwiches. But like any meal, at the end it is satisfying. That's because she has the structure of a story very well put together, and there is the payoff at the end, which is, I would say, the perfectly balanced payoff, because this is the kind of story that's just, it's difficult to explain. This is the kind of story that's just telling the lives of people, and has a payoff that is very, very satisfying and makes you understand the context of everything that has gone before. But at the same time, it wasn't like a ta-da, a surprise or a gimmick or anything like that. It was just very satisfying. And I really applaud that. It's like when you work through a book, it's always really, really great to feel satisfied at the end of it. And you kind of have to work your way through the book. I mean, I will say there are a lot of James Bond fans who are interested in Kim Sherwood right now. This book moved me very much. I wouldn't necessarily say like, hey, grab this copy, you'll love it. Because no, this is a very brutal book about the experiences of a man who went through the Holocaust, and his family that went through the Holocaust, and the rebuilding of their lives afterwards, and then the reimagining of their lives, and then the sort of, I almost think of it like it's like a mystery novel, kind of, except the hero, Eva, is trying to decipher the mystery of her grandfather. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal because it talks about Holocaust experiences, but it does so in a very authentic way. And I think that's really, wrapping up my review of this, where this book blew me away, was just the authenticity of it. It was a book in which our main character Eva, and I have to admit in my head I kind of imagined her to be Kim Sherwood, which I don't, because I don't know, I just did, but like the authenticity in which she explored the character of Eva, and then the character of Eva has a relationship with her grandfather, and she has a relationship with somebody she meets in Germany, and it's just written in a very believable way. And the experiences that her grandfather goes through during the Holocaust, and also the people in his periphery that go through, it's authentic. it's believable, and that's why it's so difficult to read. And it's, you know, there's the brutality of the Holocaust, but there are also the complex things as traumatized people try to rebuild their lives afterwards. And the authenticity of it is brilliant. Especially, we go on all the time about, you know, men writing this and women writing that, and there are things like the horrible meme of like, explain yourself as a male writer, but I hate that. Because I do think that it's a complete fallacy, this difference between male and female writing. For example, the thing that really killed me in this book, that like reached into my heart and twisted a knife, is there is a relationship between Eva's grandfather and his brother. And I have I had a relationship with my brother. And ironically enough, a lot of this relationship, this book is very, very much involved with and set in Hungary and things. And my brother lived for 5 years in Hungary. And one of the most memorable periods of time I ever spent with him was in Hungary, in Budapest. And Kim writes this relationship between these brothers so vividly and so brilliant. And she just, I don't know, she just gets it. And it's so funny. You think of male and female authors and you're like, well, how can a female author write an authentic relationship between two brothers? Because and it's like, yeah, you realize now that the gender of the author doesn't matter. It's their ability to empathize with people and figure out, you know, how other people are thinking, even though they're not those people. She creates this relationship between these two brothers that was like poking at an open wound in me, because I don't think I've fully processed my own brother's death. And because it was, you know, set in Hungary and had all these things. One brother calls, there's the word ox, which means brother in Hungarian. It's like, my brother used to call me that. And it's like, wow, yeah. I think that's one of the things that really got me about this book. That, like, it hurt reading it because of that. But in the same way, it was good because it helped me process my grief, I think, at losing my brother. And that's kind of the point. The book is about grief. And if you read the incredible additional things that Kim Sherwood includes in the back, including an essay that was published in the Telegraph about her motivation for writing this book, it was a book she wrote to process her grief at losing her grandfather. And you feel that, and to me it helped me process some of my grief. And I don't know if it would have the same impact on anybody else, because it's like, I mean, how could you write a book about two brothers and their relationship with Hungary and history and England and this weird thing of not fitting into any particular society or culture or nationality, or I don't know. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was like, as I said, it was like sitting down, listening to someone tell you a story that you think is about them, but it ends up being about you. So there we go. I was really blown away by this book, and I think the thing that really blew me away was just the amount of research that must have gone into it. And that's why even the sections that are historically set are so vivid and authentic, but also just the amount of humanity that went into it. So I had not expected this book to impact me the way it did, and I'm a little bit humbled by it. But the one thing I will say is it definitely means I think we are in for something amazing when Kim Sherwood writes her 00 trilogy. I really do. Yeah, she's a phenomenal writer, but the thing is, she's a phenomenal artist of the human experience. And to me, as a man, that's been one of the things that's appealed to me about the writing of Ian Fleming. He was one of the few authors who wrote in a way that made me feel like the way I think and feel, and it have emotions and things, doesn't make me an alien. And I think she gets it as well. And if you're looking for James Bond references, there are a bunch in here, and I love it. One of the reasons I think she's so authentic as an author is the Easter eggs, you could say, for Bond fans in here are like shameless. And I say they're shameless, except they're not, because they in no way interrupt with the flow of the story, and they're contextually perfect. And there's a bit with Floris, the perfume that's like intrinsic to the plot. But at the same time, as a Bond fan, you read this and you're like, get that reference. Yes. So that's wonderful. And also the final thing, and to me, like the culmination of this tale is very, very satisfying. But to me, the article that's included in the back makes it even more so, because, spoiler alert, I don't think it really is a spoiler because I think she's spoken about it on social media, but spoiler alert, the grandfather in her own life, whose grief she was processing, was George Baker, who was an actor who was in, I believe, 2 James Bond films. He was Sir Hilary Bray in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and he was some bloke in a uniform in The Spy Who Loved Me, and he was at one time considered for the role of James Bond. But once you put that in there, you can, I don't know, for some reason that just, you could just get, she's one of us. Like, if you're a Bond fan, you're part of the Bond community, just know that Kim Sherwood is one of us, like right down in her DNA. And so I could not be prouder to have been given the opportunity to read this book, to take a stroll through her mind and her imagination and her thoughts. Thank you, Kim. I really enjoyed that. It's left me, like any good book should, and far few do, it left me a little hollow inside. I'm going to sit down and have a cup of coffee and think about it. But actually, funnily enough, I was reading this book, drinking Andre California champagne, and back when I visited my brother in Hungary, I used to drink nothing but sparkling wine because it was like it was really, really cheap. It was like £1 a bottle, and I'm really drinking it out of the Jewish Family Services cup that I got because I did some photography for them last year, and it's weird, all these different things in my own life that so make me think of all the things that occurred in this book and resonate with me. It was a real experience. So good on you, Kim, and best of luck with your career, and we are all behind you all of the way. Anyway, I'll be back with another video at some point, but until then, cheers. I'm Roland Hume. I've sold 67,000 copies of my books. If you want to find out how I did it, I've got a link right here you can click, and otherwise don't forget to subscribe. I've got more videos coming soon. Thank you.